Welcome to QVS Insights, a series of short podcasts delivered by Forces Children Scotland, funded by the Armed Forces Covenant Fund Trust. Forces Children Scotland has co-produced these podcasts with pupils from Queen Victoria School, which is a boarding school for young people from armed forces and veteran families. You may have heard our earlier podcasts from S5, well now it's time for S6 to talk about getting prepared for leaving QVS and much more. So in this episode, we're looking at reflections on time spent at Queen Victoria School, and we're joined by Darren, Lauren, Lily Grace and Race. And the first question, if I can start with you, Darren, is basically how does it feel to leave Queen Victoria School after all this time, sort of 78 years?
I think it's quite, get mixed emotions, because part of me wants to leave, because I think I've stayed my time at school. But at the same time, I want to stay, make more memories with all my friends, keep like the social life from school.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a strange time to kind of have that discussion, because like you've still got sort of 2 and a bit weeks to go. You still got your prom, you still got Grand Day, quite a few very important things to go. But I imagine these sort of mixed emotions you talked about are coming to the fore.
Yeah, I think so. It's getting a lot more emotional in the last 2 weeks.
Sure,
because you know that it's going to be like your last 2 weeks staying with all your friends and stuff.
Okay, and Race, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, like you said, we still got prom to look forward to. We got our S6 activity weeks and stuff like that, and obviously Grand Day.
Yeah.
But it's getting very surreal. I mean, for me personally, I've like been not getting flashbacks, but it's like kind of thinking about all the memories that we've made throughout the years. So.
Do you find as well sometimes, because I remember when I was leaving school or university, you would walk down a corridor and a memory would spark.
Yeah.
You found that?
Exactly. You just go around the school, you just remember like, oh, I did this in P7, or somebody did something stupid and silly and stuff like that. Yeah, you do remember those things.
Thanks, Reese. And Lauren, how about yourself? How is that? How does it feel?
It's quite like scary, but then I feel ready to go at the same time. But I think it's more of like my friends I'll miss, and having to make new relationships at different places where you don't actually know anyone.
So in many ways, like Darren, it's kind of mixed emotions, isn't it?
Yeah.
But at least you've still got those kind of 2 weeks to really build some more memories, I suppose.
Yeah, you've got like them 2 weeks to finish off. Not that you finish off friendships, but to
close a
make
chapter.
The final memories.
Close a chapter. Absolutely. Lily Grace, how about you?
I think like what Ray said, it's quite surreal. Like I feel like for the most of us, it still hasn't really kicked in that we are leaving in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like to me, I just can't believe that we're already like this like late into the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really nice like in the last 2 weeks to like just spend like more time together rather than doing classes. So it's nice to like almost like do like more boarding stuff and experience like the actual school side rather than like just education.
I think, like you say, I mean, it's that almost like quality time with your peers, isn't it? Because you've had a lot of pressure with exams the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks. Now it's that nice little grace period now where you've got 2 to 3 weeks to really have fun and really build solid memories. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Great stuff. So we're moving on to the next question, which we're going to talk about is our highlight of our time spent at Queen Victoria School. So, Race, if I could start with you here, what's been your highlight?
My highlight personally has been the rugby within QVS. I mean, we all started in P7. I mean, everybody was at different levels. Personally, I just never played rugby, so it was a completely new sport for me, but managed to pick it up. And throughout the years, we've managed to win multiple conference, our leagues. We've made it to finals, and it's just made a lot of good memories on the way.
And I believe, Darren, you're a member of the rugby team too.
Yeah.
Do you have a similar kind of highlight or something different?
Yeah, I think a lot of the boys at QV, all their like best memories come from rugby, especially if you're quite like the sporty type. Because everyone starts not that great, or maybe there'll be a couple that have played rugby before, but everyone comes up through the years and we all develop as a team and get quite a good like team spirit and stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine that camaraderie extends both on the field and then off the field.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying you have quite strong bonds off the field as well?
Yeah, I think it brings the boys together a lot, especially for the boys' houses, Cunningham and Hague. They're all like, it brings a lot of people together and helps a lot with like the friendships and stuff.
Great stuff. No, thanks, Darren. And Lily Grace, what's been your highlight?
I would say my highlight's been the boarding. Quite like the fact that you're just like living with your friends. It's quite fun, especially like starting at such a young age. Like before I started QV, I used to be like, I couldn't go on sleepovers. Like, I used to like hate going away from home and like leaving my parents, but like going to QV's like just made me come a lot more become a lot more independent. So which is, and it's quite nice, like living with your friends, and we've all like grown up together, so we've literally like seen like each other like grow up through the years, and
it's almost like a second family in many ways. I think having been privileged to work with many of you pupils at Queen Victoria School, it seems like it's an extended family, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So there's a lot to absorb there, isn't there? And Lauren, finally, what's been your highlight?
I think going to the boys rugby finals is a big one. Like everyone at QV, it's like a big day out, and that's something that definitely will be remembered. But I think for me, probably going to Switzerland for the Basel Tattoo with the school's pipe band.
Okay, and was that on the scale of Edinburgh Tattoo?
Not quite.
No, not quite.
It's a bit smaller than the Edinburgh Tattoo, but it's still like, definitely an experience you'll never forget.
And imagine too, the boys talked about the rugby there, but I imagine too there must be quite a close bond between the musicians. Is that true to say?
I mean, when you're at the band, it's like a different vibe than it is everywhere else at school. So, yeah, I guess you could say there's quite close friendships down there.
But you've built some great memories, though, to go into Europe and perform, to different audiences and just raise the profile of Queen Victoria School as well. That must have been massive.
Yeah, it's something that you're definitely not going to forget, but I think part of it was like making friendships out with school as well, because you meet people from different bands.
Absolutely.
Across Scotland, which was pretty cool.
Great. No, thanks for sharing that, Lauren. Really appreciate that. And Lily Grace, if I could start with you for this next question, what's the one thing you're going to miss the most about Queen Victoria School?
That's quite a difficult question.
Well, I do apologise.
Just all right. The one thing I'm going to miss, honestly, just the people. Like, I think it's going to be quite strange, like Warren said before, like kind of moving on to a new chapter. But yeah, no, I definitely will miss like the people, and like it's going to be weird, like once we have Grandy, like knowing that like our year group, like we're never going to kind of like be in the same room again, like we're never going to see each other, like we might not even see each other ever again, do you know what I mean? So I think it's going to be, sad, and we'll miss. Would you say identity comes to that? Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, because I think it's really interesting, when I've been at Queen Victoria School, that, you have this wonderful holistic experience, but then you have the parades and the uniforms, and it's a very unique culture, a very unique identity. So if I was in your shoes, I'd be thinking quite that, my identity is going to change. Would that be a fair point? Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah? Yeah. Absolutely. Would you agree, Reese?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to be fair, I'm just going to miss the people, because I think the people that you meet at QV, we've all got that bond of all our parents are in the forces, so we always straight off the bat like are good friends, and then just throughout the years that relationship has just developed into something much stronger, which I think a lot of us will struggle to find anywhere else.
Yeah, I think so. That's a great point, Race. I mean, Lauren, if I could come to you next. I mean, Race has just been talking about the fact that you all had that common link. You have parents who serve in the armed forces or are veterans, but we're going to move on to the next step. So I guess that must be an important consideration. Yeah, I think because everyone at QV like kind of gets it. Like, if you're homesick, people understand. Well, like, if you're with people that aren't in the forces or like don't have parents or any relations to it, they find it a bit harder to understand like why you might be the way you are. Because like people can be just awkward in social situations because they're always moving. They've never really been able to find that friend group, and then QV helps you find it. So. Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting because you when you're at QV, you could be facing like a parental deployment. And, you could, there's that community of understanding there. Whereas when you move on to that next step, it's not necessarily going to be there per se. So that might be quite a challenge, perhaps. Yeah, well, when, like, last year, my parents were in Kenya, and there was another girl my year that was also then got posted to Kenya. So, like, we had that mutual, like, understanding where, like, if we were homesick, we knew we could be with each other because we were, like, both our parents are in Africa, but... When you're out of school, no one really quite gets that. They're like, "Oh, that's cool," and you're like, "I don't know." Well, maybe not. Yeah. But that common link is like a great point about. I think you'll really miss the most there. That's great. Thanks for sharing that, both of you. And Darren, just in closing, there, what would you miss the most?
I think it would just be the memories, or making more memories with like all the boys, and because for at school, you're always with each other. Yep. So there's always something to do. You're always laughing. You're always
another trophy to lift.
Yeah, no, trophy Swift, yeah. But I think it would just be laughing with the boys and
No, thanks for sharing that, Darren. Really appreciate that. So I think it's been really interesting where we've been talking about what we miss the most, and people have come up quite a lot. So I just want to talk a little bit about the staff at QV. It's very clear to me that, many people's form really strong bonds with the staff at QV. So I can imagine too, Lily Grace, that you're going to miss that relationship as well.
Yeah, it's almost like some of them are everybody gets a tutor, so it's like in a way they can become like your second parent. And a lot of the staff are like that, even if they're not your tutor, like they're just really good at like wanting to look out for you, and like they really try to like look after everyone, and they just want what's best for us. I think it will be, for most of the teachers, it will be quite sad for us to leave them, but I think also the majority of them have watched us grow up as a year group, so I think it'll be quite emotional for them when we leave as well.
I imagine it's quite a challenging time for all the staff at QV at this time of year, because every year it's the same thing. You have this really strong bond, then a group leave and go off to positive futures elsewhere. Absolutely. And I think as well, Lauren, we were talking earlier about young people, particularly when you go off to university or college, they don't have that understanding of the lives you lead in terms of having parents from the armed forces or as a veteran. So I guess too, it must make a huge difference to have the staff at QV who really understand the lives you lead.
Yeah, I think the staff at QV, they try to look out for you, and they try to understand your situation, which I think is a good thing, because they never say they know what you're going through. They always say I understand, which makes you feel a bit better. Like they're not trying to challenge you on it. They're just looking out for you.
They just try playing that listening ear and provide that kind of level of support that you're looking for. Would you agree? Is that kind of the approach?
Yeah.
What about yourself, Darren? Do you have any sort of similar thoughts?
Yeah, I think some of the staff you just get along with. It's like another friend kind of thing. Especially as you get into the older years, the staff become a bit more friendly because you understand them a bit more once you get older.
Yeah, sure. And I think as well with the rugby, we got your sport coaches. They've been on the same journey with you, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've been working hard in those cold, wet, rainy Januaries, and you get to winning championships and everything else. They've taken that journey with you. So I can imagine too, it must be quite difficult. Like Lily Grace was saying, it must be very difficult to see another group of S6 go off to positive futures, isn't it? Yeah,
I think it's because they've came through the journey with us. It's quite hard to leave them as well.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Race, do you have any thoughts there about the sort of staff at QV?
Yeah, I mean, we all get assigned, well, for the boys, when we go to the senior house in S1, we all get our new tutors, and obviously they're with you throughout the years. We meet up with them every Monday, and obviously the staff at QV, they also work within the houses as well, so we see them during the school day, but even after hours, they'll be up in the houses. We see them at meal times and all that, so yeah, you see them a lot, and that just helps you develop a really good relationship. You're always chatting to them in the office, etc.
No, absolutely. Really, really strong bonds there. It's very clear to me, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so just moving on a little bit there, and I think it was Lauren, you touched upon this earlier on about forming friendships out with QV. I'm just wondering if we can just get a sense, and I'll maybe just start with you, Lauren, about, with regards to the last 7 years, have you found it quite easy to go back to where you live and then form relationships out with QV?
Well, I think I've been quite fortunate, because everywhere that I've lived recently, pretty much half of QV lives there.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough.
So everyone's in Edinburgh. There's a lot of people in Edinburgh. So
yeah,
but it's been quite easy that you can just meet up and just go a walk or something like that. But yeah, I think forming friendships out with school as well. I joined a rugby team, and forming friendships with them girls out with schools.
It's gonna be a nice balance.
Yeah, and it's you've got friends both ways, and then if you come out of school as well, you've still got them friends out with school, because where they live, where at school everyone's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And how about yourself, Race? Have you had a similar experience when you go back home? Is it easy to assimilate back into friendships?
Well, I'm one of the few boarders at QV that live down south in England, so I mean, I recently just moved to Oxford. My dad got posted there, so it's a bit tough, because for me personally, there's not a lot of people that I know around me, so I don't have as many friends as others would at QV. So it's a bit tough for me, but I mean, I enjoy just spending time with my family, and just like traveling and exploring new places. So yeah, it can be tough sometimes, but
No, that
get through it.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. Lily Grace, what about yourself?
I would say for me as well, I'm quite fortunate. I like haven't moved around half as much because like anyone has. My mum just wanted to like kind of buy a house, and she was like, I'm not up for the whole like moving around. So it was just my dad that was always away. So luckily for me, I've managed to like make a lot of friends like where I live, because obviously I haven't been moving. So, and it is quite good, like Lauren said, you know, because they're like always going to be there because that's like their house, and it's good because obviously I'm not moving anytime soon either. So
makes sense.
it's quite good to like know that you've got like stable friendships out with. So like when it all gets a bit much at school, you know, it's nice to go home and you're still got peace. You're also like got something to do as well.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. No, thank you, Lily Grace. And Darren, final word for yourself there.
I think I've got quite a lot of friends at home. I think it's because the battalion my dad's in, when everyone moves, everyone kind of moves together.
Okay.
So I've kind of moved about, and it's a lot of like the Fijians from at home and that,
I see.
that I've stayed friends with. Yeah, guys.
And it's really interesting because I think 2 or 3, maybe even Lily Grace to an extent too, you've formed friendships with, you know, young people with lived experience to an extent. So just thinking, looking forward to, you know, going to your university and college, it's clear that there might be 1 or 2 that might have similar experiences. But equally to the vast majority will probably not. So do you think that might be a challenge to maybe make friendships in university and college, Reese?
Yeah, I think it will be a challenge in a way, but I mean, I think QV teaches you a lot of things which you can then use in different aspects within life. So they've set us up pretty well. I mean, we will all get along just fine. And at the end of the day, we'll always end up making friends.
Yeah, and,
So
I believe you're going to university with a few fellow pupils.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's quite a few people going to like the universities in Edinburgh. So there'll be some familiar faces out and about town.
Yeah, because it must make it feel a little bit easier. You know, you're up for the challenge of making new friends, but equally too, you've got existing friends to help you along that journey.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, it's great stuff. Lauren, what about yourself?
Well, no one from schools wants to go to Stirling, so I'm going to have to make new friends. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but so hopefully it's fine. But I'm in the same area, so like people in the year below that I'm close with, like I know like if it ever gets tough at uni, I can always go back to school.
You meant you can. Yeah.
See my friends at school.
Yeah, just drop in for a coffee and whatever else, you know. But I think, like, say you talked about rugby there, that could be a great common link, couldn't it? It could, you know.
Yeah, well, Stirling's very quite sporty uni, so hopefully, and it's very close to the club that I play for, so hopefully I can just.
Yes, I think you'll be just fine. I think.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And Lily Grace, you got any further thoughts?
Just. It is exciting, like, obviously moving on to uni, but I do think it'll be, like, kind of just... I think it'd just be weird for us all being, like, a new environment.
Yeah.
Because obviously, at our school, it's, like, quite, in the beginning, it's quite forced friendships. It's, like, you really, like... And because there's not many people in our year, it's, like, you're kind of just stuck with everyone you've got. It's not really, like... It's not a bad thing, but it can be, like... It can be quite difficult because we're in each other's faces all the time, really, so... It'll be good to get out and like experience like a whole new environment.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because when you come to QV at Primary 7, it's a shared situation. Yeah. You're all there because your parents are in the armed forces, but this is your own choice. You know, I can't remember which university did you say it was, US of Scotland?
Yeah, the West.
You know, that's your choice, and now you're going to be put into a year group where, like, again, you don't have that common link. But I think, like you say, you just like Race was saying. You learn skills, don't you? And you just adapt and you just find common links, don't you? And just move forward.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And Darren, just any sort of final thoughts there?
Well, I'm not actually going to uni.
Okay.
I'm just going to get an apprenticeship.
Right, okay.
Be a joiner. So
that's fair enough. Absolutely.
I'll still be at home at my pals.
Yeah, like say, so again, like say, I think you've got that. Did you say you had that kind of sort of mix between those with lived experience with battalion, but do you have sort of civilian sort of family friends as well?
Yeah. Not many, but there's a few.
No, absolutely. And just finally, in this podcast, I just want to talk about that making that next step to whether it be apprenticeships or university. Is there any sort of apprehension about taking that step about in two weeks' time after Grand Day, it's all over, I'm thinking about the next step. Is there any sort of nervous energy already about, oh, we're going to have to go into Freshers' Fair soon, meet all these whole new people again and start again, really? Is there any sort of apprehension there, Reese?
Yeah, I think it's just been so long since P7, obviously.
Yeah.
LG said we were like kind of forced to like know each other, obviously. And just going to uni is going to be, well, we've been through it once, so surely we can go through it again.
Absolutely.
But just taking it one step at a time. I mean, we got the whole of summer to enjoy. I know a lot of the people that live up in Scotland will be spending time with each other as well. So, yeah, just taking it one step at a time.
Yeah, very wise, Reese, very wise. Lauren, what's your sort of thoughts? Was there any sort of apprehension there?
Yeah, I'm quite scared because like I came to QVS 1 and everyone was quite like took you in and was just like, no, just like took you into the friend groups and showed you like how life was there, where like I'm now going in myself as a fresher, so it's a bit like I've not really got anyone to show me what to do. You've just got kind of got to find your own way because you're in a routine at school where like you're gonna leave and you have to find your own routine and make it yourself.
Yeah, it's very daunting, absolutely. But I can imagine too that you get there for the first day and you get your registration, and just by virtue of sitting in a hall with your classmates waiting all to get your matriculation cards, discussions start, don't they? And before you know it, someone plays rugby and you've maybe played against them, or
I think it's exciting nerves because it's like you're nervous, but then you're like, oh well, no, because it's a whole new chapter of my life that you're starting. So absolutely.
And Darren, for you, you just talked about going into an apprenticeship, entirely new chapter, a different chapter to the rest of the group. So what's your kind of thought? Are you apprehensive about entering the world of work at this early stage?
Yeah, there's a wee bit of fear going in because I'm just going straight into the world of work, obviously. Just got to get on with it, eh?
Yeah, get on with it, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a great attitude to have, absolutely. And Lily Grace, just finally from you.
I think one thing that we can all agree that we're probably not as nervous for is like accommodation.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say at all that like I'm that concerned about like sharing a flat with other people. Like it's one thing that I could probably adjust to quite easily, because obviously we all know like the type of stuff to bring. Like we get that life like living from home. Whereas I think for me, I would find it really difficult if I hadn't been to a boarding school to maybe adjust to moving so far away from home and like not seeing your parents all the time. Like I'd find that quite difficult, but I'm quite excited, and I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, like obviously your uni, it's all adults really. It's all like older like students, whereas like it's different to high school. Like it's all like just you're all growing up together and you're experiencing it together. Whereas like uni's like everybody's older, so it can be quite daunting at the same time.
I can imagine too that could be a huge opportunity for everybody. In terms of those early weeks where you might have a lot of young people who have been at state school and they're not used to boarding, whereas you can offer that little comforting arm around the shoulder and say, look, it's not going to be too bad, and before you know it, you're forming strong bonds.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, great stuff. Well, that concludes our podcast. I just want to thank you all for sharing your lived experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.